all of that amazing stuff about Stephen today. But before we jump into that, Stephen, paint a picture for us about where you were, before you joined the Writing Gym. What did life look like for you then?
Well, I'd decided to become a writer. I had a lot of very, very good ideas. I had a style that people seemed to like, but I wasn't getting anywhere because, among other things, I'd employed someone as an editor who was, to put it bluntly, no good. They were a specialist in nonfiction. They were trying to use me to break into fiction, and they probably did more damage than good. On riding on the back of that, I came across Annalisa in a forum, and I just happened to mention, "Do you do editing?" And she said, "Of course I do." Next thing I know, I'm in the Writing Gym doing the publishing mastermind.
And how was that experience? I mean, you've been in the mastermind for a while. How is the mastermind experience different for you than, your previous editing experience or experiences?
Well, the first thing was interaction. We communicate, we get together a couple of times a week during the publishing mastermind, one where we review 30 pages, and the second time when we look at the changes that I've had to make, which is always very useful. It's not just you're getting, as it was in my case with my previous thing, I just got my document back with all sorts of tags and marks put on it in Word. And basically she wanted me to rewrite it in her style. Whereas Annalisa helps you rewrite it in your own style. She says, you need to change a bit here. This is maybe not the best way to put it, but she doesn't force you. You don't force us to do in a particular way. You let us find our own voice and keep our own voice. And that is, of course, very, very important. If you're going to succeed as a writer, you have to have your own voice. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have support, which is wonderful, because when the second time I went through the whole of the publishing mastermind, I had very few real corrections to do. It was more, maybe you need a little bit of a backlink here or a foreshadow or something like that. Or, this is a Britishism. That's the favorite problem, Britishisms.
Oh, bloody hell. How did I do?
Oh, blimey.
Oh, blimey.
No, gore blimey.
Oh, gore blimey.
Which is short for God blind me. You obviously don't watch enough EastEnders. But the whole point is that I learned so much on good writing, and with Annalisa, sort of there holding the whip over me, so to speak, I've developed myself incredibly. The first time that I worked with an editor, I'd done a couple of revisions and that was it. Now it's a rare story that by the time Annalisa's got to see it, hasn't been through at least a dozen revisions, if not more. Remove passive voice, get rid of those unnecessary adverbs, adjectives, stronger verbs, the whole kit and caboodle that anyone who's had to do any sort of revision work will probably have had to run through themselves at some time.
So it sounds like you learned a lot about yourself as a writer, but also about the writing and revision process.
Exactly. I've learned so much. And now when I'm actually writing, I may still make the same mistakes, but when I go and reread them for the first time, I go, nope, that's wrong. No, go and change that. The first revision cycle, I catch so many errors that then the later cycles of editing are actually then really story extension, story cleanup, getting rid of the redundancies, making it a cohesive whole. As in the last one that we did together, a novel called Shuttlers, which started out as a series of short stories, has now been turned into a cohesive whole, which I'm very, very proud of, I must admit. I'm really happy with what's come out of that, because Annalisa pointed out how I could improve the way I was telling my story. So my craft as a storyteller has been massively improved by that. And it's made me so happy that, that at the moment I'm in the middle of, there's the one finished, there's two finished. I've got another 6 or 7 I'm working on. you're not going to stop me until you prise my cold dead fingers off the keyboard.
That's amazing. So for people who are here in Write to Publish, tell us a little bit about your publishing dream. And you've got some amazing goals, some lofty goals, some goals that you're going to get to, but tell us about, and the sky's the limit. What do you want for your publishing?
Well, what I want, I have an anthology in which I'm working on the fourth part, collection of short stories. I've got offshoots, I've got novels. In fact, I've just started 2 whole new projects, a fantasy story called House of Doors and one called Special Investigator Jones, which is going to require me to do the thing that I hate most, plotting. Because it's going to be detective stories, and I am sort of the ultimate pantser. I will sit down, as Annalisa well knows, I will sit down with a single prompt or a word, and I'll start producing. And my goal in the end is to leave behind a legacy of books where people go, oh God, have you read this latest one? No, it's out next month. Oh no, please, not another month. Yeah. But yeah, I want people to be, to be sitting on the edge of their chairs waiting for my next book to come out. The way I write some of my stories, I'm sure that in the end they could be made into a good TV series or maybe even a film or a series of films. Now, that would be nice. My name up in lights in Hollywood. Yeah. That is my ultimate dream.
That would be wonderful.
For people to say, oh yes, I remember him, or I fly in somewhere for a book signing and people are lining up at customs saying, can you give me the sign this copy of my book? That's my dream. How far I get onto it depends very much on how much longer I have. Yeah. Because we're all mortal, and yeah. But I want to leave enough of a legacy behind that. A dream I would love to have is something Isaac Asimov once said shortly before he died. He said, there are students poring over my old notebooks, making their theses as doctors about my writing and how I write. And I'd like to think, somewhere along the line, someone will write a thesis saying the paranormal and love and hate and immortality into the writing of Stephen Oliver. But we can but dream.
Yes, that's amazing. And in the last 7 days you've gotten steps closer to that dream. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Well, the book I mentioned before, which is titled Shuttlers, we sent off, Annalisa sent off for me to a publisher who was very interested. They didn't actually accept the book. They said it didn't fit with what they're doing at the moment, which I can accept. They may have a slightly different bent or a slightly different direction, but they did ask what else I was doing. So we have just this evening, less than half an hour ago, finished the query letter and the first 3 chapters, which will be going off.
It's gone. I mailed it.
Oh, wonderful. Even better. So that's gone off, and we'll see how they react to that. Because, as I love to think I have a very vivid imagination, or as my mother puts it, I'm weird. But the whole point is, I love to write stories which stimulate the imagination, the way that mine has been for the last over 50 years since I first discovered science fiction and fantasy. And yeah. I want to add to that canon.
And you and I celebrated the moment, that we were able to send the first manuscript, right? This opportunity came out of, my generating relationships with publishers and
exactly.
agents. And, it was particularly exciting because you went to the front of the line, right?
Yeah. That's always good to be able to jump the queue, not to end up in the slush pile, because, the slush pile is where you end up, when you end up being thrown out with the rest of the slush.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the whole point is, I'm hoping that the time will come when they look and say, oh, he's got a new manuscript. Right, come on, your job. Let's go with this. Where I've got a long-term relationship with a publisher or publishers, and we see, where this goes. But I don't have
And
anything much else to do. I've retired myself because I'm looking after my mother, so I have plenty of time to write when I'm not looking after her, and that has been so useful to me because, as I was saying to Annalisa earlier on this evening, in the last 7 odd years, I've written 860,000 words.
that's just, I mean, that's so amazing and so worth celebrating. Going back to the publisher story, remind me, it was really fast, but I don't remember, right? We had sent the, I sent the letter of interest to the publisher and we heard back right away. And then we sent the manuscript and we heard back right away. What were the turnaround times on those? Do you remember?
The turnaround time on the original, on the synopsis, was very quick. It was just a matter of a couple of days. The turnaround on the manuscript was 6 weeks, but since they themselves said their turnaround is at the moment 12 weeks, that shows that we were on an accelerated path. In
That's
other words, I
amazing.
was already moving through much faster than the people who've gone in and sent to them unsolicited or
Yeah.
unrequested.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, you know this as well as I do, that normal wait times are months and months and months to get that rejection. How did it feel to get such a quick response
It
like that?
felt incredible, even though it was a rejection, even though they said, sorry, we don't want, or not for us at the moment. The fact that they came back to it, because so many of the things I've sent off where they say, if we don't contact you in 60 days, it's an automatic rejection. That is all you get, and sometimes you don't even get that.
Yeah.
They just have it on their website. They say, if you don't hear, bang. One or two, some of the ones that I sent off earlier in the year on your suggestion for the short stories, for instance, they did actually come back and say, thank you for your fantastic writing, but it doesn't fit the profile of what we are doing right now. Mm-hmm. That's okay. You can't please everybody. And if you try to please everybody, you're going to please nobody. So when I write, I please the reader who I will most appreciate, myself. Because I think I'm a typical science fiction and fantasy reader. I love the stimulation. I love the ideas and the characters and so on. So I write a story that I would be pleased to read if somebody else had written it. And of course, that makes it all the better when I realize I'm the one that wrote that.
Right. Yes. Well, and that's a powerful statement. So bring us back to where you are right now. So we've got one submission out to this publisher who wanted to see more of your work. And
well, there's I'm just starting ramping up. I've got this wonderful book that Annalisa recommended. I'm going to go through that once again, and I'm going to start sending out the book that they rejected, because I'm sure there will be other publishers, Tor, Baen Books, all of these science fiction specialists, because it's a pure science fiction book. I'm sure there's one of them who will go, oh, I like that. Yes, let's have a look at that. So, at the moment, I'm preparing. I was a software engineer for over 30 years, so I've got a spreadsheet where every book has its own spreadsheet, where I document exactly who I'm sending it to, how I'm sending it, what date, what results I got, all these things. And I've now already got that started up for the new book. And also, as a writer, I can't stop writing. So I've got that book. I've got the book that's out at the moment. I've got 3 follow-on volumes to that, the third of which is a work in progress. I've got a couple more anthologies. I've got a novel, and I am going to get what do you call it? When I get round to it, I've got a self-help book that I've been working on, but it's been sitting on the back burner for the last 2 years, ever since I started working with Annalisa.
Well, you've been busy with some sci-fi, fantasy, horror.
Yeah. So, there's all this, and the first on the line is going to be going through Annalisa to Tor, which is one of the big science fiction publishers. I just mentioned them. She has a connection there, and I'm going to be using that connection to pass that story on. I just have to find out exactly how they want things. The usual problem, how they want it formatted, how they want the query letters written, and also making sure that it's something that will be pleasing to them to look at the letter and say, well, I like the idea of the letter here, and let's see what he's actually given us. But
Yeah,
these big people, these big companies, they're the ones that you really want to make sit up and notice.
For people who don't read or write sci-fi, tell the people in Write to Publish what is that? Why do we care? Why is it so significant?
Tor is specialized purely in science fiction and related fantasy stories, but they are sort of in the science fiction world among the big five, to comparison to the big five you get in literary fiction in New York and so on. They are in the science fiction world, one of the biggest of the big.
Yeah.
And they are, and if I can get them on the hook, then the only way up is up.
Yes. Yeah. And they're given pretty big advances these days. I'm just saying.
Are they? Okay. That I did not know.
So,
it's
as you know, and the listeners don't know, right? I had a very long conversation with one of their New York Times bestselling authors. We went to breakfast this past weekend. And, she and I were just getting together to talk about our writing processes, really, as like author to author. And I got talking about my clients, as I usually do, and one thing led to another. And I ended up speaking about her with her editor and whether or not it's a good fit. And so, this is just amazing stuff that happens because I'm talking to editors and publishers and literary agents, and New York Times bestselling authors. That's who I spend my time talking to so that you guys can publish well and move to the front of the line, because it's really, really important to me.
And as I said once before, one of these days, who knows, you talk about the Bloomsbury Group and all of these. One of these days, who knows, I might be classified as one of the Annalisa authors.
It could be. That might happen. That would be pretty cool. Okay, so now I'm going to take this in a slightly different direction because, you've been around for a while. You've gone on retreat with the Writing Gym. And so, this is a fun place to be. And one of the traditions is that you guys kind of rib me a little bit about a number of things. But one of them is me being a mama bear and kind of taking care of you guys and really keeping track of you guys and keeping you on track and that kind of thing. So pull back the curtain for the people who aren't here. I'm a mama bear, but what does that look like in our day-to-day interactions?
Well, the greatest thing is, that it's being with someone who cares about you as a writer. I think that is so important. This other editor I mentioned, it was a case of I sent the stuff to her and a few weeks later I got the stuff back, and all communications was via email. Never actually talked to each other. Here, I said during the publishing mastermind, when you're actually going through your revisions, you actually get to talk to Annalisa a couple of times a week. When you're in the VIP before that, which I was in when I was working on my second book, I did everything back to front, but I was a breech person and I've been doing everything back to front ever since. But we had, when I was working on that, there was a weekly meeting to keep us on track and so on. There were all the modules. That's one of the best things. This is the only place I've come across where you get modules that get changed and get updated and get added to. I've bought, I don't know how many $1,000 worth of courses where the thing is all boilerplate. You do this, you do that, read this book, write it this way, etc., etc., etc. And there's no real feeling that you're dealing with anything but a machine, because it's all pre-programmed. With Annalisa, she reacts, at one point when I was working on the first book, she said, it's not a sort of thing I would write about, but I must admit, you may give me a bit of a taste for it. So, I have, there is a person there behind it, and there's a person who cares about her writers. And that is that is so important. Without that care, I don't think I would be anywhere near as far forward as I am now. I certainly wouldn't have been as encouraged, because for those of us who have the chance, we get to write with her every week in a salon. And that salon it's one of the most productive times I have, because I write for 20 minutes. I get feedback from my peers about how they come across, how it comes across to them, what they learn, and so on. And we have great fun, even though we sometimes have make jokes at each other's expense. For instance, Kaylee said once, "Wonderful story. Stephen didn't kill anybody." Because my stories tend to be a little bit dark and not to say horrific, but it's these people, and through the Facebook page, for instance, we interact with each other, we encourage each other. When somebody's got a celebration, everyone's coming up and saying, "Oh, great to hear that, congratulations on getting your toe in the door," or "Congratulations on getting it finished." And even things like, you finished your VIP, you're now in the publishing mastermind, and everyone's going, "Fantastic, keep going." And then you go from the publishing mastermind to the boot camp, where you start doing your query letters, which what I've just been doing, and you get all this encouragement. And of course, the latest one that we've added, that Annalise has added to her bow, is the Published to Pulitzer, where we are studying a Pulitzer Prize winning book to try and understand how it works, what makes it so effective. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever get a Pulitzer Prize, because I don't know if the subject matter fits the Pulitzer Prize, but it certainly makes me think about how I write. Mm-hmm. And that is always important. Like the previous one we did with Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird, it made me think a lot about how I write, how I present characters, how I improve my craft. And as the saying goes, don't try to be better than anyone else. Try to be better than you were yesterday. And that's what I'm working on. That's what I love to do. I have found my passion, to quote the self-help gurus, and this is the passion I'm going to keep going until I am no longer able to. And I'm hoping that Annalisa will be there all the way.
Oh, I would love to, Stephen. It would give me great joy. And so for people who are in the group, people who are listening right now, if they're thinking, gosh, maybe this writing gym thing is right for me, I'm not sure, I don't know, maybe next year, what would you say to them?
There is a lovely parable from the Zen world. It says, the best time to plant a tree is 40 years ago. The second best is now. So if you've got an opportunity, if you've got a chance to grow and to improve yourself, and maybe actually get that book out there. I mean, I'm thinking of Jeannie and that wonderful book. I'm so looking forward to reading her book when it comes out, which is about the Secret Service and having DID, the dissociative identity disorder, and so on. I'm so looking forward to reading it. I don't know whether she would have ever got round to actually contacting a publisher, contacting an agent, if Annalisa hadn't been there to give her the encouragement that she gives everybody. And so, if you are serious, you've got to be serious, because it's going to take you a lot of time and effort. But if you're serious, do it. Because there's no time like the present. We live in the present. The future is just imagination and wishes. The past is long gone. We only have the present. And if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? Or are you going to end up on the last day of your life regretting that you didn't?
That's beautiful, Stephen. Thank you for sharing that with you and with all of us. And thank you for celebrating all of the progress that you've made with us today. You're doing a really great job, and I'm excited about these new opportunities you have, and we'll continue to keep people posted on your progress and the date of your book signings.
Yeah. Yes. Have to make sure that I've got I get there on time. I have no sense of time, which is why I'm probably such a great writer. Because I have been known to start writing something, and then at 3:00 in the morning, my mum will come and knock on the door of the office I'm in at the moment and say, "You should be going to bed." And I'm going, "Why? What time is it?" And I look down, and I've written 3,000 words.
Wow.
And That's the thing. You've got to have a passion for it. You've got to believe that you can do it. And believe me, if you believe you can do it, we'll believe you can do it, and we will be here for you. Like Annalisa, we will be here to support you. And retreats and all of that sort of thing, they're just all a wonderful way of getting together. And I'm looking forward. I'm planning to how I'm going to get to the retreat this coming retreat in May.
Wonderful. Yes.
So I need to talk to you about that.
Sure thing. Love to do that. All right, my friend, take care. Thank you for celebrating with us and sharing your story. We appreciate it, and happy writing.
And the same to you, all of you writers out there. I look forward to seeing you one day here in the Writing Gym or at a book signing somewhere out there. Look after yourselves.